it's important that you get such an insurance while you are still young. That's where you get to prioritize at least protection part of it. I said to myself, I want to start setting aside education funds for my children. When it comes to protecting yourself, a traditional can do, pero if you're considering more of you want to also part of a certain discretion on where you're going to invest the money, a variable life would actually work for you.
Hi everyone, so in this video, we're gonna do a deep dive on VULs. What is it? What are the advantages of investing in it? What are the misconceptions? And for that, we have a very, very special guest. He is the Director for Solutions for AXA Philippines, and he was one of their first CIOs. We have Dexter Agcaoili joining us in the podcast to share his expertise on how you can utilize VUL. So Dexter, how are you?
Good morning, Marvin. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me in your show.
It's always an honor, no? Especially for topics like this, which people have heard about, but they haven't taken the time to be able to do a deep dive on what it really is. So this is what I'll do. I'll go straight to the matter. What are VULs and what is it exactly?
Variable Unit Linked Insurance Plan. So that's VUL. Now, variable because kumpara dun sa traditional insurance na makakakuha ka ng fixed return na tipong 2 or 3% pagka nag-mature na yung policy. Dito, the return that you may get is really variable. It may vary depending on the fund or funds that you get to choose. Okay? Next is yung unit link. Unit link meaning the money that you put into the variable unit link product, part of that, syempre babayaran yung insurance part, yung protection, and then a part of it will be then invested into the fund or funds na gusto mo. Being the policy owner would have that choice of how you're going to allocate it, how much in equities, how much in bonds, depending on your risk profile. Traditional insurance would just give you a guaranteed return. Usually, it's a low return of around 2 or 3%, depending on market situations. So it will mature at a certain, maybe at age 65, 70, or whatever. In a variable unit link, yes, it covers you on the same amount of time. Say whole life. Yan. The returns will vary depending on the kind of funds that you have and depending on how you have allocated across different kinds of funds. And of course, preferably, you allocate it based on your risk profile.
Assuming that they get the same coverage so that it's a head-to-head comparison. 1 million traditional, 1 million VUL coverage. What is something that will work for a person who's in their 20s or in their 30s as well?
We really have to go through yung financial needs analysis, as we would put it. Parang depending on your age, your circumstances, there's a good mix of insurance products for you. And I personally have like a certain mix. I still have a traditional type of insurance that is whole life covering me till age 100. Okay. Pero I also have a variable unit link. So the combination, parang you can look at it as like an investment portfolio. If you have your investment portfolio for a particular purpose and may mix up between stocks and bonds, similarly, you can have an insurance portfolio that would meet a certain purpose. It's important that you get such an insurance while you are still young. That's where you get to prioritize at least protection part of it. When it comes to protecting yourself, a traditional can do, pero if you're considering more of you want to also part of a certain discretion on where you're going to invest the money, a variable life would actually work for you. Trade-off eh. A traditional whole life insurance can give you a guaranteed return, 2 or 3%. But the question is, are you happy with that? So you can go variable unit link, wherein it can cover you for the same amount of time, sum insured as well, comparable. If you prefer to have that flexibility of where to invest, somewhere down the road you want to add more, then a variable unit link product allows you to do that.
And I like what you said, no, that it will also depend on how your financial needs are. So this is what I'll do. I'll put the link in the description below for those who want to contact a financial advisor so that they can also start something that's catered for them. But I have a question. We talked a lot about the protection side of it. As what we've discussed, VULs have both protection and also an investment part. Drilling down into all of this, in terms of percentages of the premium, where is it invested? How is the mix for that? Say, I put X amount of money in a VUL, which goes to the investment side and then which goes also to the protection side also.
Nagbabari yan, depende sa pagkakadesign nila. A certain percentage like 40% would be as a premium charge, meaning pambayad ng protection. Okay? And then 60% would be invested into the fund. Say, first 3 years could be like that, 40%, 60% nasa investment. The succeeding years, let's say, 4th, 5th year, 100% na in the investment. And it's important that we get to understand bakit merong ganon.
Every time you enter a VUL as a form of an asset, it's something that you're looking into for the long term. It's not something that you look into, pang 3rd year lang to or pang 4th year lang to. This is something that you should hold on to way past your prime also. And I've been into this already, I think, for 14 years. And what I've realized is, and I hope people who are watching this get this, that the longer you get into it, the cost becomes cheaper. It's just that it's not something
Right.
na you will benefit from it for the first 2 years. It's more of, if you live longer, it will do very, very well for you.
One thing that we also need to really explain and ensure that it's clear to people who are buying a variable life insurance is that primarily you buy it for the protection. Okay? And then secondarily, it gives you that savings plan, so to speak, or parang a mechanism how you can actually save. I said to myself, I want to start setting aside education funds for my children. At given their ages now, how much do I need, say, 7 years from now, in terms of educational expense? That's the main purpose of protection. If something happens to me now, or between now, say, at age 50 ako, there will be something for them. Okay? So that's the protection side. And then looking at the feature of the regular pay product is that I can always do a regular top-up. The regular top-up is that on top of the annual premium that you pay, I would set aside, put it there. And as I am covered for, let's say, 4 million, my regular top-ups and the growth of that fund will eventually meet by that time I need it. Important that we first appreciate the protection part of it.
I totally believe in that. No, that to everyone watching this, that when you look at VUL, it's always an insurance with an investment component. The main reason why you're getting it, you want a certain amount of protection that should something happen for the short term, your family, people that are important to you, get money. If nothing happens, it's a very, very good investment plan that will beat a lot of the traditional investments. My technique has always been top up. There's a regular amount, but what I realize is every time you top up, a large chunk of that money goes to your portfolio and it's invested. In my opinion, it's okay to follow your regular payments, but if you want to really build a base, it's all about topping up and putting as much as you can. And that has, especially when I was starting out, when I was employed, what I did was part of my income, I would invest it, but every time that mahilig kasi ako mahilig ako mag-business noon, I would find every time I had free time, I would try to find extra sources of income. Pero yung mentality ko noon, since extra to, I would pile that up and accumulate it and just buy investments. And ganun ginawa ko. Regardless if the market was up or down, alam ko extra to eh. So this was something that would have not been there at all. But since may pumasok na extra, I won't time it already. I'll just accumulate. And as I started to drill in, teka, this bought me more shares than the same amount from my regular payment.
Yeah. Exactly. For example, meron kang windfall from a certain consultancy or let's say bonus. Man, quarterly bonus may dumating. There's also what we call lump sum top-up. And it's 100% of what you put in there goes to the investment. And you do have a choice of it. May mga friends din ako that who would say, how do you differentiate VOL as opposed to I will just buy term and then invest the difference? right? That is a very popular strategy of investment.
Super popular. Yeah. Thank you for raising it. Sobrang dami nagtatanong yan. So this is so interesting.
Yeah. So, well, parang initially, parang pareho sila, right? Pero I think we have to separate ano yung mga distinct items here para ma-appreciate natin yung both. No? So in buying term, usually a term insurance would cover you for either 5 years, renewable 5, or let's say 10 years, renewable X number of years again, right? Worth noting that when you have term and then you're renewed, say from 5 years, then you're renewed, upon renewal, your premium actually increases. Hindi na-adjust yung premium nyo based on your age. As you highlighted correctly earlier, na the younger you are, the premium that you pay is smaller. Diba? Pag mas matanda na tayo, mas marami ng mga sumasakit sa katawan, mas marami ng kondisyones at mas mataas na yung premium natin. Ayun yung one thing that we have to be mindful of.
And I just want to interject this also that you run the risk that kung wala kang sakit ng 25, pag 48 ka na, there might be something that may emerge. And it's not just the premiums are higher. There might be even a risk na baka hindi ka na makakuha ng insurance also.
Rated ka na kung tawagin dahil hindi ka na pwedeng ma-insurance ng Through time, from young to till you get old, the amount of protection you need actually declines. Okay? Nag-accumulate na yung wealth mo through time. That you have the wealth to cover for future expenses or future needs of your family. So protection goes down, but it doesn't go down to zero. I'll tell you why. Because at some point when your wealth is so high already, you need an insurance vehicle to pay for estate taxes.
Is there like a category na, okay, itong tao na to, bagay siya pang VUL, this is the category that he falls on. This one, at this point in your life, better buy term or invest the difference. Or at any point in time, just do VUL na lang.
There's always a good mix for you. The term insurance is there to bump up your coverage, particularly for a certain period of time. Okay? It's a matter of appreciating a unit link, a variable unit link, and a term insurance that can actually work for you. Mm-hmm. And I would really encourage everybody to be aware of that, what we call insurance requirement, so that your insurance coverage is sufficient to meet your requirement.
For that, click the link in the description below if you want to talk to a financial advisor. And I like what you said, kasi that's my style also. I have both. People need to realize that, in my opinion, term and VUL, they're not in competition. They're something that should work for you. And the more you have of them, the better it will be kasi those are assets. The name of the game is having as much assets as possible. Better buy that term insurance and that VUL than buy your 14th rubber shoes that you won't use naman. Especially we are in that pandemic. Better deploy capital into something that can give you value. So if you're asking my opinion also on what would be better for you, it's not an or statement because it can be an and statement that you can have and you can be positioned in both, because the whole narrative of insurance is that meron lalaban sa'yo pag hindi mo na kaya paglabanan sarili mo. And before we transition to my next question, I just wanted to say this also. I think the difference between VUL is you get a specific coverage, you get a specific amount that you want to be insured, pero as you continue to top up, your fund gets bigger, and the advantage there is yung total protection mo lumalaki rin. So it doesn't stay static that I'm in my 30s right now. If I have a specific protection amount and then I continually put money in for 30 years, that entire amount that I have been building, that forms part of what my family will get also. And that's something that people don't see.
And when you do a top up, it's like a single premium product where if I put in a top of 100,000, that adds 125,000 insurance cover to me, right? That's one thing that good thing that you highlighted that. And one thing before we leave the conversation about term insurance and all, in a regular pay product or a VUL, there's also what we call a rider, a term rider. So para in your VUL na regular pay product, pwedeng hindi ka na bumili ng separate na term product, but rather you just buy a rider, which is essentially a term insurance. that will cover you for a certain amount and over a certain period of time. So there are certain riders that does that. So effectively, your VUL with the rider is a VUL with a term.
Especially for people who are investing in a VUL that's equity laced. This is my opinion. If your timeline is long, your goal is to accumulate and your goal is to stockpile. When prices are lower, it gives you an opportunity to get actually more. So,
Yes.
if you are in the 4th year, on the 6th year of your investment horizon, tapos kailangan mo pa naman siya 30 years down the line, it has to be an opportunity that you're looking at it that yung dating 25,000 na tinatop up ko only gets me this much, but because it's lower, I will actually get more. And corrections like this, 20, 30 years down the line, you will actually thank yourself for taking the risk. And from one investor to another, it's really emotional when you see your money na dati up ako 20%, ngayon either down ako or konti na lang gain ko. But if hindi mo pa naman bibenta, baliwala rin naman yung 20% mo eh. What matters is when you need the money, the base is bigger. And I think that's what people need to look at. It doesn't matter if your money is up 100% pero linagay mo 100,000, naging 200,000 lang. Better that your portfolio is 20 million, kahit up lang yan na 20%. 20 million of 20% is still better than 100% of 100,000.
One main message that we should always share is it's not all about just I invested into the stock and it gave me this much return. If you've just been playing around with, let's say, 1 million pesos and then hindi mo siya dinadagdagan through time, you just still end up with 1 million capital and then some gains, right? What really makes someone wealthy through time is that person has that discipline of setting aside regularly a certain amount. It's important that we get to appreciate these features, may it be yung regular investment plan of a certain broker or a UITF provider na they give that automated way para hindi mo na iisipin yung kailan mo tatimingan. Ang iisipin mo lang, ponduhan mo and then it will be invested.
The equities, the companies na binibili ng mga funds, hindi naman sila bumagsak ng presyo dahil pangit yung pamamalakad ng company. Bumagsak lang sila because there was a pandemic that no one predicted. The underlying concept that if the company is good and then we get past this pandemic, which we will get past, those companies will come out of the gates running also because inherently they're really, really good companies that will perform way past this pandemic also. I would not be as aggressive as I am also right now without experiencing and getting VULs at the start.
There are times naman that you may think na, okay, should I surrender this VUL, buy this another one? Dapat clear on yung purpose.